Hello and welcome to Atomic Facepalm. This guy is Chris, that lady is
Bree,
and it's the best of PAX West 2017. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. You can always hit subscribe. We would love that. We are over 100 subscribers, thanks to you lovely people out there. And you can leave a comment and talk to us. We like to hear from you. This video will focus entirely on the best games that we played or saw at PAX 2017, which recently ended. Getting right into it, we're going to talk about... Oh, and by the way, this list is in no specific order. These are just great games that we'd like to highlight.
Kind of our top three each, plus a bonus because it's so hard to pick just three.
Yeah. Something along those lines. So, starting off, this game was actually on my most anticipated games of 2017 list. So, no surprise, probably to anyone who saw that video, that Ruiner is absolutely on my list. They had a playable build there that was much different than the build they had in PAX East 2 years ago. So, it is a top-down perspective brawler/shooter.
Okay.
Very Twitch-based, inspired by games such as Crusader No Remorse, Syndicate, these types of things. So it's a small studio, and there aren't many enemy types. The idea is you can chain attacks together, sort of like Batman Arkham Asylum, along those lines, where if you get your attacks right, you can bounce from guy to guy to guy and to maximize your output. Mm-hmm. That's if you want to go close combat. You can also select and pick up different firearms with varying degrees of effectiveness and capability, everything from shotguns to futuristic weapons. Mm-hmm. And the idea is you explore through these maps, and they don't really quite say what the story is for the mission exactly, but you're kind of like a hardwired human, like an augmented human.
Okay.
And so it's not certain if you're being programmed to go out and do this, but it seems kind of like a resistance versus the corporate uprising type of thing.
Yeah.
But it feels very much like Akira as far as the tone goes, a lot of anime inspiration.
No, it looked really good. I know.
Yeah.
I look at that game and I know I'll be terrible at it, but it looks really good.
It is a hard game.
I
don't know how good I'll be at it either. I died a few times during our playthrough, and that was, I think, just the beginning.
But it looked like they were checkpointing often enough that like dying often wasn't that big of a deal that you could keep just kind of, even if you weren't that good at that.
Yeah,
game.
it's not a punishing game, I don't think, for dying. It's just I could see how the difficulty could be a hurdle. Mm-hmm. But the graphics are great. It's published by Devolver Digital, and they usually, more often than not, strafe notwithstanding, publish really good games.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'm very, very much looking forward to this one. And it comes out very soon. So you will probably see a review on it, I don't know, in a month or so, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So one of my choices is Frostpunk. So this is a game that when we were at PAX East, they just had a basic little like, hey, we have a game that's called Frostpunk. And then this time they had a playable build. So this is like 8 months later, and it is like really polished. It's definitely a strategy game, and the whole thing takes place kind of in, you're saying 1880s colony?
Yes, Northern England.
Northern England, kind of like very snowy, desolate, and in the center of your little colony is this heat source, like kind of a furnace.
It's a giant generator.
Yeah, giant generator, and you've got like 80 different workers when you start out there, and then you've got to survive and build around this giant generator, which provides your colony heat. So it's kind of like you start in a circle and you build your way out. Really nice looking and really in-depth kind of simulation.
It feels like SimCity in a circle.
Yeah.
But with a lot of psychological and totalitarian aspects to it.
So some of the choices that you need to make, because the idea is that you actually all survive, but some of that means you have to make sacrifices. And so you're choosing between like, do I want to, feed them sawdust a little bit? Or do I want them to be happy, healthy workers? Do I want the children to work? And if so, how much? And, you're kind of making these choices all the time. So it's not just about making the most streamlined city that runs the best. It's also about like, do I want to be this evil person? How, mean do I want to be to everybody to make us survive through the winter? So it seemed like a lot of different, not just strategy, but also kind of making you question what you are able to do.
It is. I think the main purpose of this game is not the city building. I think it is psychologically damaging. It's trying to put you in a position where the greater good has to prevail. Yeah. You start off with 80 people, including children, and some are going to get sick, some are going to die. It's all about the long-term survival of
and
this
those
small
choices
little outpost.
that you're going to make. Yeah. So it's really cool. Same people that did this War of Mine, which I felt like had a very similar somber tone where you're like, okay, yeah, I want to survive and I'm going to steal food right now, but I don't think that these are bad guys. I'm stealing food from somebody else that is, just like me trying to survive. So there's always these choices that you were making and how it made you feel.
Yeah, they've got a niche genre in
they really
horrible
stick to
misery and just a totally bleak outlook.
Yeah.
The graphics were incredible, by the way.
It looked really great. It looked, I'm still shocked at how much it's come since like the last PAX.
Yeah.
So
it looks almost finished, honestly.
Yeah. I had no idea on, I think 2018 for release.
2018.
Yeah, 2018. Yeah. So that was a game that I am really looking forward to. Looks like a game that I could dump loads of hours into.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
So that's one of my picks.
Yeah, Phantom Brigade is my next one. This was one that was actually covered by PC Gamer and a few other outlets. Actually, I did a little bit of reading up on it, which is surprising because it was in the Indie Mini Booth, which is a subsidiary of Indie Mega Booth. So Indie Mega Booth by itself in PAX is fairly good size, but it's usually just a bunch, like tons and tons of games squished into one area.
So their table's kind of like, a little bit bigger than this, like most basic booth, and they've got like maybe 2 to 4 screens of playable space, really small. And then the Indie Mini booth is like 8 different screens. Everybody gets one screen
one
for half of the
24-inch
time.
screen.
So for 2 days. So you get one screen for 2 days, and then somebody else might take over your screen for the next 2 days. So he only had there for 2 days.
And it's bonkers because this game felt like it should have had a giant piece of floor space.
It is really, so the more he talked about it, which you maybe want to describe a little bit.
Yeah, so really what you're looking at here is a turn-based tactical strategy game with mechs, a highly destructible environment, an insane level of customization, really strong tactics and strategy, a little bit of teamwork. You really are going to take up to 4 or 6 mechs at the most, at the very most.
I think they're trying to keep them more skirmish-based than campaign-based.
Which is great. That's perfect. And it reminds me of Dawn of War 2. So I think that's why I liked it so much, except turn-based, not real-time strategy.
Yeah.
So the idea is you go out in these missions. It takes place in an alternate reality where the Earth's core has been shattered and rises up to the surface. I believe I might be saying it wrong.
A planet or a planet near the Earth broke apart and they fell down, and it's the kind of resources that you would get like out of a core of a planet, like iron and whatever. And so they create these little areas that people are fighting over.
Yeah,
which is kind of the base idea.
So yes, that is the overall. Being humans and even in an alternate reality, they're going to fight over that stuff.
Yep.
And the idea is each mech has 2 hard points in their arms. You can customize again with different types of weapons, whatever you want. He didn't reveal any melee combat specifically in this one. I would imagine it'll be in the finished version, but we're not sure. So it's a top-down perspective. Again, you can zoom way in or zoom way out. The thing that stood out to me the most was the amount of you could improvise really cool tactics. Like you could shoot a solid slug through a building or blast apart a building with rockets, and you could then get a guy in position and shoot through that building to create a line of sight to somebody else.
Yeah. So the whole destructible, buildings and everything added this another layer to it. Plus, it's based on action points, so you get 150 action points. So you might move, shoot, and then move and duck away again.
Right.
So it gave it, and instead of being like you get to fight once, you get to move once, and they have to be in this certain order. Just allowing you to have those action points was a nice way to open up the tactics of how you're going to control each of your guys. Plus, the turn order was kind of staggered sometimes.
Yes.
So it might be your 1 mech, and then his 2 mechs, and then your 1 mech. I mean, you're aware of the turn order, but it doesn't just like all my guys move, then all your guys move.
No. It's like Darkest Dungeon where there's a random number generator. Yeah. Seemingly, he didn't reveal exactly what place do you wear. It shows you.
It shows you. So you can, use that to strategize. I think one of the things that stood out to me was speaking with the developer is every time you asked him a question, he had an answer. Like a detailed answer. And I don't mean that in a way that like he's just throwing everything into the game. It means I feel like he's thought about everything and how that's going to work with something else. And he comes from a modding background as well. So I feel like he kind of understands that people want this game and then they also want to take it and do their own things with it. So it was about he was talking about maybe making a map builder so that you could make your own campaigns and then share them with friends. So his idea is really to give you this platform, a nice solid strategy game, and then letting people go with it. That was, I think, one of the exciting things.
He's made a ton of progress. I'm a little nervous about the release time because it's an incredibly ambitious project. It's one guy. And he said
a couple
he
artists.
recently hired a few artists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool what we saw, but I'm worried it'll take years and years to actually
And then,
come out.
it definitely was one of the stronger games I saw there. It's
Yeah.
just really cool, and he seemed like really focused and driven on this game, and I'm really looking forward to see where it goes.
His enthusiasm by itself was infectious.
Yeah,
honestly.
it really was. I think that was one of the stronger things about the game is just talking with the developer. I can't imagine he has a voice right now because he was just on point, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes. Next.
Oh, so my turn. Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. This is another really interesting game, and unlike anything else I've seen. So you play as a character, and you kind of do this, get into a poker game in the beginning of this thing, and you lose, and so you kind of make this deal with the devil sort of thing, and you have to go out and explore America and get different stories.
Depression era.
Yeah,
America.
so it's during Dust Bowl, Depression era stories. And so you start out, and it's a literal map of the United States, and you start out in Maine, and as you explore the map, kind of like you would top-down Google Maps, but you're a little skeleton guy exploring the map. And hopefully I'm laying over some images here or video right now so you can understand what I'm trying to say. But as you explore that map, you get more stories and you collect them, or you do quests, or you talk with people. And kind of that's the whole thing, is kind of these different stories of this time period of the American West. And I think he had 25 different story writers work on that. So it's not just one person's vision or one perspective on stories. He's actually gotten other people or historians or writers or whatever to do these other stories and put them together. So it's kind of this tapestry of all these really kind of folklore-y stories, and it's really a kind of text adventure with a little bit of a map exploration stuff. There's also something, I don't understand how it works but this tarot card kind of piece.
Yeah, that part wasn't really explained.
I don't think we got far enough or got enough time with it, but that was one of the things that brought me over to the booth, is I see all these tarot cards out. I'm like, what's this tarot card game?
I think he mentioned briefly was you can mix and match the stories to make them your own. I think that has something to do with it.
Okay.
I would describe this game as Pokemon with stories and a choose your own adventure where you can't die.
Okay, yeah, definitely choose your own adventure, because as you were interacting with somebody that popped up a story, then you had to choose, and it was kind of branching narratives in that way.
It's very binary choices, but there's still a lot of choices, and the amount of work from the narrative that has gone behind the background of this game is just dizzying.
Yeah.
I also want special call out to the narrator, who is probably, I don't remember the guy's name, he mentioned it, and I'm totally spacing, but on par with Bastion or Darkest Dungeon or Pyre, just that high quality narration.
Which I think it really needs, because a lot of this is kind of text. I mean, there's visuals with it, but a lot of this story is text, and it's not in the Torment Tides of Numenera, where you're kind of getting this world there behind it. It's really text driven.
The most basic images, I mean, well drawn and very cool recognizable, but flat and...
Yeah. I think this game really stood out to me just because it was so different, and I really hope that a lot of people play this game, because you can tell how much heart and work went into it, and it just feels so different than anything else. It's not your Metroidvania, it's not your platformer, it's not your RPG. It's just really cool, something different.
We actually have a friend of ours who's also making a game, and his mention was, it's this most amazing game, but probably no one's going to play it, which would be like a travesty, because
it really would.
It's so good.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So next from you.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Swords of Ditto. Now, this is strange because this was one Bree actually was really looking forward to, and I knew absolutely nothing about. And we kind of had a role reversal where I played it, absolutely fell in love with it. And you were a little lukewarm on it, I feel like.
I was a little lukewarm. I love the art style. I love the combat feel of it. So this is a action adventure game, kind of in the style of, what were you saying?
So for me, it was more like Secret of Mana. I think the obvious comparison is the
Zelda.
Original Zelda: A Link to the Past, to be very specific.
Yes, that version of it, where it's this kind of top-down view
with very
spritey kind of characters,
cartoonish type of characters. It's So we played in co-op for one thing. So it's a co-op game if you want to do it that way. Otherwise, you can play single player.
Which was very fluid. So he dropped out and I was just playing single player. And I think that he could have just popped back in and he would be where my character was. So if you have a friend over and you want to play together, it seemed that it was fluid co-op out of nowhere.
For me, I think the reason it struck such a chord is there's a lot of nostalgia. It felt like a very polished Square Enix game. One, not recently. I mean, I'm sure they're making fine games now, and they really have. But one from the 90s.
Yeah.
This seems like a very specific callback to the 90s. I mean, they put their own spin on it. It looks like it takes place in future past. or something like that, where there's like stores and there's technology, but you're also wielding swords. It takes itself very lightly. It's got a very childlike sort of humor approach. Not childlike in a bad way, but
childlike in a really polished, cute, awesome way, which is the art style is what drew me to it. But things like to travel around, to fast travel, is you use this little kazoo shop, and so you can use a kazoo to travel, and you get stickers for buffs. So you'd put stickers on yourself to buff yourself up, like give yourself +5, whatever's. Yeah. It was cute. It is cute. I felt like it played really well, but the story to me was just like instantly like, okay, I'm the chosen one. I need to go kill the bad guy because the good God woke me up.
Yeah, I think that was probably intentional. I would have liked a little bit more of a twist or something. I think that was the weakest part.
Yeah. So gameplay-wise, I was really right out of the gate. I enjoyed it. It felt good. The story would have to be a little more, or the gameplay would have to really go up for me to finish the whole thing.
Well, that's a good transition because the next game you're going to talk about is very, very similar.
And this is where Tunic is my next pick, and I feel like these games are very similar in style and gameplay. Like the actual art style itself is slightly different, but it's still this kind of top-down action-adventure game.
Yeah.
Tunic to me just had slightly better combat mechanics where you're doing a lot more dodge rolls. You get a few more weapons to play around with and use on the fly. The enemies seemed a little more stronger and different. They were, doing different things within the first, because we were only playing 5 to 10 minutes here. So you really get this very small window. And within that small window in Tunic, I felt like I got a lot more variety. So that was kind of more my choice. And then on top of that, there is no story. It's just like everything that you're interacting with is in these kind of runes.
Which I thought was awesome.
It was really awesome. So even when you look down, where they have you playing, you look down and it's like the control scheme. And instead of saying like jump, whatever, it just is these confusing runes. So you actually have no idea about anything. And I'm hoping that something about that was very intriguing and made me want to play more. I was hoping it was something that like over time I start to understand the runes in the game and start to understand what the world is about. And just that little teeny hint of mystery made me want to play more.
It was entrancing. So I was doing the video on that one. It was hard not to like just look up and ignore what the camera was doing because I was so enveloped in it. It's built off the Unity engine like 99% of every other game out there that's an indie game. But they did some really impressive stuff with the Unity engine.
Definitely the look of it is unlike anything else where it's these kind of low polygon but smooth textures on top of them. So the way that everything moves, especially these little triangle trees that you're like the vegetation as you run through it, it's kind of got this boingy, bouncy feel that's just, I don't know, something about it is just so unique. The main character is a little tiny fox with a sword, which I can't even. It's so cute, I can't even. Seriously. But again, the combat was, right away you get a sword. I got a stick. I've got a shield. So a lot of these kind of combat mechanics came together very quickly, and it was a little overwhelming. And any of the gameplay you're seeing probably now, I'm being terrible at, but it was interesting, I guess. All of it.
A much harder game than Swords of Ditto.
Swords of Ditto felt like. Yeah, super easy right out of the gate, walk up to something, smash it. Where this, you needed to pay more attention to what type of enemy you were fighting and how you fought him.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I like them both. I'm probably going to play the crap out of both of them, but Tunic just a little bit more, for me. So, bonus round.
Okay, so bonus round for me is going to go to a game. I'm going to have to look this one up and read it because I always get it screwed up. It's like just an anagram of words. Or not an anagram.
Just random
that's
game words
Scrabble
together.
Words. Yeah. So it's Hidden Dragon Legend, not to be confused with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. No, Hidden Dragon Legend. I think it's actually a little bit of tongue-in-cheek reference to that.
Yeah.
So it's I had never heard of this game. We were on our last day in PAX.
Last hours at PAX.
Yeah. We were just finishing things up, walking from booth to booth. And I said, oh, that looks cool. And funnily enough, the developer is actually playing his own game, which you don't see very often at PAX.
Yeah, you kind of had to squeeze him out of it.
I know. I was like, dude, come on, I want to play your game. So I started playing it. And it reminded me a lot of Shinobi from the 16-bit days. Graphics are much better. And it's really just a brawler, but it felt so good. I mean, the gameplay is dead simple. You play as a ninja, and you can jump and float in the air and hit stuff, and then you can on the ground. I mean, it's two-dimensional, like a three-dimensional world. So it's a side-scroller, but the map will shift and adjust, which makes it kind of cool. I mean, it's really, I couldn't think of a more basic game.
You kind of had a magic thing that you had smite and something, right?
Yeah, so the idea is you can activate these. You have a limited use of them, just like old-fashioned console games. A couple of powers apiece, which you can recharge over time. And you need to use them at the right time. It slows you way down, so it takes a lot of charge up. Then you can just shoot through a bunch of guys at once and do all these cool combos. It sort of activate like auto combos if you do it correctly. Again, it's kind of like Ruiner, where you need to chain your attacks together.
Okay.
So if it's a button masher, which is fine, but if you really know what you're doing, like I actually have a lot of experience with these games. And Brie was like, "Wow, it looks like you played that game your whole life." But it's just because I have a lot of experience, and it felt the controls were so solid for me. I feel like this game was just instantly playable because there was so much thought and care put into the controls.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was just kind of like zoned out at this point, dead in the eyes of playing so many games. And he walked over to this game, started playing it, and I'm like, I thought it was like a follow-up. Like there used to be a Hidden Dragon was on the Genesis, and I just never knew. And this was Hidden Dragon Legend, like somebody remade in a game from old. You played it so well. You're just like...
Yeah, it just felt natural and great. I mean, probably like Ninja Gaiden Black. I didn't play that one, but from what I've seen, probably similar.
Okay.
It was just, again, very instantly rewarding, and it made you feel like a superhero. So, yeah, special shout out to that one.
Okay. My last and special shout out is Ooblets.
Yeah.
This is one of those games that I've been if you've watched any of our videos before, I've probably been talking about it because I think it looks so cute and great. So this is kind of a mix. It's kind of like a Harvest Moon, mashup with Pokemon, mashed up with Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Basically, you go out into the wild and you collect these little Ooblets, which are kind of like little Pokemons, and they can fight for you. But when you fight another character, they drop a seed. You can take that seed home and then grow your next Ooblet.
Literally grow it.
You literally grow. Yeah, you got
it.
like a little garden and you grow your next one, and you kind of collect them and you can trade out their skills, and you kind of have this home base where you're, farming and shopkeeping and doing all those fun things and going around town and talking to people. It just had such a cute like art style that I don't know. It just sets itself apart from other things for me.
It was instantly welcoming. Yeah, the art style was very inclusive. It felt like you were just playing like a creation of love.
Yeah, it really does.
It was just heartwarming, honestly.
It is. It really is. So that game I'm really excited for. It's being worked on by two people, a woman, and I think maybe even her husband is helping. But the woman, Rebecca Cordingley, or whatever, she's doing the main, grunt work on this. A lot of the art is hers. And she started this game with this visual approach first, and starting with that base level, like everything I'm going to do is going to be shareable. And I think that's been working really well for her.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's just been on my radar for a while, and I was just so happy that I can finally get my hands on it.
Absolutely. Did you want to mention the Way of the Passive Fist?
Yeah, so I've talked about Ooblets so much, I almost didn't want to talk about it again. But so this last game, I guess it's a bonus.
Yeah.
The Way of the Passive Fist. I think this game, we actually didn't play it because it was, again, the end of PAX, and the line was already too long. But we talked with the developer for a while and watched a lot of gameplay. Yeah. This is kind of a brawler where instead of fighting, you are blocking and parrying a lot of things.
It's Final Fight or Fatal Fury. Not Fatal Fury. Streets of Rage.
Yeah. So you're kind of that, brawling through it, but you are you play as this character that actually has one arm is missing, so it's kind of under a cape, and he's just got this other arm, and he's constantly blocking, parrying. The enemies that you're fighting against are telegraphing their attacks a lot, and so you really have to pay attention to what they're doing, and by blocking them, eventually you wear them down. The whole thing takes place on a planet that's very close to the sun, so it's like a desert, scorched planet, and everybody's really hot, so the more they're fighting out in the sun, you just kind of let them wear themselves out, and eventually I think you can
touch them and they fall over.
They touch them and they fall over. For one, I love the title. Like that pin, the Way of the Passive Fist pin, will be on my bag forever because I think it's the best title ever. And it was also really cool talking with the developers. He's already made it so that you can completely remap all of the buttons. So it's really accessible for anybody with a disability or people that just want to change their buttons because they want to change their buttons.
This guy.
Like that guy right there. And then it's all set up for colorblind people so they can see everything. So it's this kind of approach to game making that is, not only is it a labor of love, but it's like I want everybody else to be able to play and enjoy my game. Kind of this spotlight on different kind of fighter. It was really great.
Another incredibly friendly and excited dev.
It was
right on par with the fellow from Phantom Brigade. It's just you could tell he was extremely happy, just very much privileged to be there. He just wanted to talk to everybody. And even though it was the last day of PAX, he was like, you'd think it was the first day because he was so bubbly and just like, yeah, come on, I'll talk to you about it.
Yeah, so it was just really great to talk with him and see this thing that he's made. And not only that, but he had, I guess his wife makes or disassembles arcade cabinets.
Yeah.
So he had handmade his own arcade cabinet and brought it to the show floor, and it is an awesome arcade cabinet on top of that.
Even had a real CRT in it. It looked just like every arcade game you loved as a kid with giant pixel sprites, so the characters are really big on the screen. Really boisterous, bold art style.
Yeah, really bright, and I
would shove quarters in this thing if it was, possible to do that.
So really awesome game and really awesome people making a game. So
yes.
That's one of those things that just stands out so much.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, that's us for PAX West 2017. And all the links are down below for all these things. Yep. Hopefully you follow them on Twitter, favorite them, wish list them, support
do all the things to them.
Yeah, support indie developers. I think every single one of these is an indie game, and this is what makes gaming awesome. So.
It really does. Now, one quick thing I do want to mention is there were a lot of games we did not get the chance to play or missed. That's bound to happen. Bree noticed a bunch today. So if there's something on here it seems to miss, hey, sorry. I mean, there's so many. For example, Wolfenstein 2 looks great, but
it's like the only AAA game that I was really excited for, and I just couldn't do a 2-hour line.
And Cuphead was there, but that was even longer than Bethesda's
hour and a half line. So
yeah, other stuff was there, but these are just the ones that
stood out to us.
Nearest to our heart.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Until next time, good luck.
Have fun.